Okay, let's have an honest conversation about Blitz, because far too often people act like Blitz is this horrible person and that he's infinitely worse than every other character within the series, and because of that, he doesn't deserve anything, except of course for loneliness. Now, this is a really common sentiment throughout the fandom, and I understand. Blitz has made mistakes, and he's definitely hurt a lot of people. But in reality, is Blitz really that bad? Listen, I know that a lot of people are going to bring up the stuff that happened to Stolas or Verasika, but when we're really looking at the grand scheme of things, Blitz is kind of a pretty good guy. Don't believe me? Let's talk about it, because far too many people are focusing on the negative aspects of Blitz without looking to more of his positive ones. And in reality, Blitz isn't as bad of a person as you may think. So, to start this video off, we need to go with the very obvious path of talking about how Helluvaboss is actually an allegory for class division in our society. Because when you think about it, class is one of the most important things to Blitz as a character. Throughout the entire series, we see how Blitz has a special place in his heart for imps, and he truly wants to see them succeed in a society that basically doesn't value them at all. Obviously, the Striker episodes are all really good examples, but I do want to bring up the most recent one, Ghost Bleepers, because in this episode, we see how supportive Blitz truly is to other imps. The friendship between Blitz and Millie is probably one of the most wholesome in the entire series, but there's something very important that a lot of people are missing about this friendship, and that's the fact that Blitz and Millie are treated the exact same by society because they're in the same class bracket. In their first interaction, Millie doesn't believe that Blitz is working for himself because imps can't do that. Imps aren't allowed to be their own bosses, and they're supposed to be working underneath somebody because they're not valued. But Blitz doesn't believe that, and because he has such a strong determination to prove other people wrong and to show how powerful and strong imps truly can be, he's able to change other imps' minds. And obviously, Blitz has had a huge impact on Millie and her perspective on life, as she finally believes that she can amount to something other than just being somebody else's pawn. And in that same breath, when we're looking at the relationship between Luna and Blitz, it's kind of the same thing. Blitz wanted to save Luna because he didn't want her in a terrible situation. He wanted to show her that she could do something more with her life. And although Luna will probably never admit it, Blitz has been a very caring father figure in her life, something that he never had growing up. When Blitz sees other imps and hellhounds in the same situation that he was in, he wants to try to inspire them to change and to grow and to develop. He doesn't want them sticking to the same mindset that they've been told over and over because he believes that's wrong. Blitz is actually a revolutionary, and when you think about it, what he's doing for imp kind is kind of astounding. So keep this in mind moving forward, that Blitz has always been treated as lesser than, especially in the society that he was born in. And although other people who are above him may not think the same way as the rest of society does, they are exceptions and not the norm. And if these people have done actions in the past that perpetuate the mindset that Blitz has been consistently trying to fight and overcome, can you really blame Blitz for not understanding their true intentions? So with that out of the way, let's talk about the relationship between Blitz and Stolas, because many people are very quick to blame Blitz for everything that went wrong in this relationship, when in reality, it's really more of a 50-50 split. So let's start at the most obvious point, the beginning, in which we know that Stolas was just using Blitz in order to get back at his wife, Stella. Very clearly, Stolas was not happy in his relationship and never wanted to be married to Stella in the first place, and because of that, he lived a very unhappy life. But everything changed when he met back up with Blitz and started having a more adult relationship with him while still in his marriage with Stella. In the very beginning of the relationship, it is made crystal clear that Stolas only wanted Blitz for his body and nothing more. We see this made very clear in the pilot episode and episode 1, in which Stolas doesn't even care what Blitz is doing, he only wants Blitz for his body. And of course, in return, Blitz is using his body in order to get access to the human realm to better his life. So yeah, both parties are getting something out of this arrangement, but one thing is not like the other. One person is selling his body to ensure that him and his friends have a sustainable career in a society that values them as lesser, and the other person was in a very toxic marriage situation and wanted to feel alive again. And also, we do have to mention that Stolas is a prince of hell. He's probably one of the most important people in the entire hierarchy. And since we're on the subject of hierarchies, let's actually take a peek at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs dictates that human motivation stems from a hierarchy of 5 fundamental categories: physiological, safety, love, esteem, and self-actualization. Using this framework should allow us to better understand human behavior, and for Stolas and Blitz, it's going to allow us to better understand their actions. Because for most of the series, I would say that Blitz falls somewhere between physiological needs and safety needs. Blitz is far more worried about his basic needs rather than thinking about his trauma and trying to work through it to be the best possible person he can be. Blitz really doesn't have time to think about the people he's wronged or the trauma that he's gone through because he's more worried about eating and making sure that he can continue to sustain himself and his friends. Now compare this with Stolas, who definitely is towards the top of this pyramid. All of his basic needs are met. He's never really had to struggle to get food or shelter or security. Stolas is at the top of his society. He's super powerful and he has a huge mansion, meaning that he can focus on other things in his life. Which is why throughout the series we see that Stolas genuinely starts to develop feelings for Blitz and realizes that he's in a toxic relationship with Stella. Stolas is an incredibly privileged person in the society that he lives in, and not enough people bring this up. Stolas is an all-powerful prince surrounded by imps who do his every bidding. And although he does eventually develop feelings for Blitz, he never once tries to fight the mindset that the rest of Hell has that imps are basically beneath other people. And instead, he's actually perpetuated this mindset in front of Blitz. And again, I haven't seen a single person call Stolas out for this. So let's talk about Season 1, Episode 7, Aussies, because I feel like a lot of people will just gloss over one of the most important scenes between Blitz and Stolas. In the episode, Blitz and Stolas go out on a pseudo date in which Blitz is just kind of using Stolas because he didn't have anybody else to go out with, which honestly is pretty crappy of Blitz to do, but we have to realize that their relationship at this point is still purely transactional and there really isn't anything more to it. And the person who confirms this for Blitz was Stolas himself, because the moment that Stolas was called out on having a relationship with Blitz, he immediately looked embarrassed and turned away. And at that moment, that solidified in Blitz's mind that Stolas only saw him for one thing and one thing only, his body. Obviously, Stolas would be embarrassed to go out with an imp because he sees imps as lesser than himself. Now, obviously, to us, the audience, this wasn't Stolas' intention, and he was just kind of caught up in the moment and was a little bit embarrassed. From an outside perspective looking in, Stolas was embarrassed because he was cheating on his wife. But to Blitz, this was just confirmation that Stolas held the same mindset as everybody else in Hell. So although many people want to act like Blitz is completely in the wrong for misunderstanding the situation, in my opinion, the onus is on Stolas to explain what happened. Especially given the disparity of power between Stolas and Blitz, Stolas should have explained his intentions and told Blitz that he isn't embarrassed to be seen with him. And what's also pretty interesting is that this is one of the last interactions that Stolas and Blitz have before Stolas confesses his feelings. Seriously, look at some of the interactions that Blitz and Stolas had before Stolas actually confessed. It's either Stolas being embarrassed of Blitz, Stolas saying things that make Blitz uncomfortable, or Blitz being absolutely terrified of Stolas' power. And hey, since we're already on the subject, let's talk about this confession scene because in reality, it shows how big of a disparity there truly is between looking at things from an audience perspective and looking at things from a character perspective. Because if I'm looking at this situation from Blitz's perspective, there is no way that I would ever think Stolas legitimately has feelings for me. Every single thing leading up until this point would tell me that Stolas only wants me for my body, and that's that. And even though Blitz does have feelings for Stolas, there is this huge disparity in class that he knows that he will never overcome. If we're only looking at what Blitz knows about Stolas, this would be the very obvious conclusion. But unfortunately, from an audience perspective, I know everything that's happening in both of these characters' lives, and I know that Stolas was being 100% genuine. And during this scene, I would agree that Blitz went way too far with his insults, but it's coming from a place, again, of class disparity. And when you really think about it, what Blitz was saying to Stolas wasn't necessarily aimed at Stolas. And instead, it was more him just airing out his frustrations about the society that he lives in. Now, I want you guys to listen to me very carefully because I'm going to try to word this in a way to not make people mad because I know that a lot of people really like Stolas. Stolas didn't deserve to be chewed out like that at all. He's actually done nothing in order to deserve that. But was Blitz actually wrong in the things that he was saying? Now listen, Blitz is not a perfect person, and to be honest, for the majority of his relationship with Stolas, he was a mega jerk. But just because Blitz was mean to Stolas doesn't automatically absolve Stolas of everything. Stolas is a Prince of Hell, he holds power and privilege, and that is very important. Stolas' realization that he actually loves Blitz doesn't absolve him for what he did in the beginning of the series. Like, there's a reason why Blitz specifically brings up that he may be smaller than Stolas, because in the beginning of the series, Stolas calls Blitz his little imp. And it's the little things, the societal standard and the mindset that was perpetuated over the course of their relationship that made it very hard to believe that Stolas actually liked Blitz. Given the information that Blitz has about Stolas, there was absolutely zero reason for him to believe that Stolas was genuine in confessing to him. Now, couple this with the fact that Stolas did not give Blitz time to process any of this and immediately dismissed him when he tried to take back what he said. All of a sudden, this frustration that Blitz has, this massive outburst, is far more reasonable even if it wasn't right. Blitz did not handle this situation well. There was no reason for him to yell at Stolas, and to be honest, there was no reason for him to vent his frustrations to Stolas and insult him. Blitz was absolutely in the wrong for this, but Stolas was also in the wrong here, and to be honest, I don't think that this interaction makes either character a terrible person. The lack of communication on both ends caused this to become a fight, and I don't think that this makes either of these characters a bad person. Now listen, I know a lot of my arguments don't exactly absolve Blitz of a lot of things, but explain why his actions aren't necessarily as evil as many people claim them to be. And also, I'm not trying to make the argument that Blitz is this amazing person and he's always been the good guy in every situation, because he's made a lot of mistakes. Unless, of course, the title of the video is something like Blitz is actually the good guy, in which case I couldn't think of a better title, but hopefully you guys are enjoying this video so far and you drop a like and subscribe. But getting back to the main point of my video, one of my biggest contentions on how people characterize Blitz is that they will demonize him for doing certain actions and yet give other characters a pass. Like, for example, Fizzaroli and Blitz, in which their entire relationship was fixed with a single conversation. Think about it, one conversation in which they were completely honest with each other and realized that maybe the information that they were told wasn't accurate fixed their entire relationship. Once both of these characters apologized to each other and realized that they didn't have the full story on either side, they were able to become friends again. And listen, you could blame Blitz and say that he was a terrible person for starting that fire, but it really wasn't his fault, it was an accident. And also, it's Hell, you would think that they would maybe have fire-resistant tents, but I digress. What's very interesting about the relationship between Fizzaroli and Blitz is that the only reason that they stopped being friends was because of miscommunication. And when we start to look at the rest of Blitz's relationship, it's not necessarily that he is a bad person, but it's just that he is a very poor communicator. Blitz isn't the best in social situations. In fact, in many of them, he's pretty awkward and he doesn't make his intentions very clear. This is one of the reasons why Blitz employs comedy so often, because it covers the fact that he doesn't know how to handle certain situations. But as the series had progressed, Blitz has gotten far better at communicating not only his emotions, but also apologizing to other people that he's wronged. And obviously with Blitz and Fizzaroli, this has proven to be the case, because once Blitz genuinely apologized, Fizzaroli completely changed his tune. Fizzaroli went from absolutely hating Blitz to understanding what happened and what went wrong. And because of that, they were able to repair their relationship. Regardless of what happened in the past, understanding Blitz's intentions was one of the most important things. Communication is key, and unfortunately, miscommunication can lead to people thinking that you're a bad person. And so I want you guys to keep this in mind when we start talking about Blitz and his romantic relationships. And obviously, the relationship that we know the most about, other than Stolas, was with Verosika. From what we know about their relationship, Verosika and Blitz were doing pretty well until Verosika said that she loved Blitz. And after he heard that, he ghosted her and ended the relationship. And it was the way that Blitz ended that relationship that caused Verosika to have all of that trauma associated with it. Verosika doesn't hate Blitz because he broke up with her. Verosika hates Blitz because he broke up with her in one of the worst ways possible. But does this make Blitz a bad person? Well, let's take a look at this from both characters' perspective. Obviously, from the audience perspective, we know the reason why Blitz cannot be in a relationship where his partner loves him. Blitz has a lot of childhood trauma, specifically from his father and because he lost his mother. Blitz hates himself, and because of that, he can't understand why somebody would actually love him. Blitz dislikes himself so much that he cannot understand why somebody would ever love him. And because of that, he can't be in any meaningful relationship, and in the hopes of saving the other person from himself, he ends up hurting them. But when we're looking at this from Verosika's point of view, not only did Blitz not communicate any of this, but he was a total jerk and completely ghosted her, which, by the way, is the worst way to end a relationship. Without closure, people have a very tough time moving on, and it's one of the reasons reasons why Verosika hated Blitz for so long. A simple conversation from Blitz telling Verosika that he wasn't ready to be in a relationship because he doesn't like himself and that he cannot accept her feelings would have been perfect, and it would have allowed Verosika to just move on with her life. Would she have still been upset? Absolutely, but would it have made more sense and maybe have fixed the relationship between them so that they didn't end on bad terms? Absolutely. Because here's the thing, Blitz doesn't owe anybody his love or affection. Just because somebody loves Blitz doesn't mean that he has to return their feelings. A lot of people will bring up all of Blitz's exes, but in reality, just because those people may have had feeling for Blitz doesn't mean that he has to return those feelings. Blitz doesn't owe anybody affection, but he does owe them basic respect. In the case of Verosika, he should have just point blank said that he wasn't ready to be in such a serious relationship and that he wanted to keep it casual, and that because she had feelings for him, he didn't feel comfortable continuing the relationship and therefore wanted to break up. Would that have still sucked for Verosika? Yes, but it would have also given her an understanding that it wasn't her fault that the relationship was ending. And to be honest, the lack of communication on Blitz's part is one of the reasons why so many people hate him. And that is the crux of my argument, that Blitz isn't necessarily this horrible, evil person, but he just sucks at communicating, and because of that, ends up hurting a lot of people. So let's look at the three main people in Blitz's life that he's definitely hurt the most, that being Fizzaroli, Stolas, and Verosika. In all three of these relationships, Blitz made a lot of mistakes. And after making those mistakes and trying to fix them, he ended up just making them worse because of his lack of communication. But what's important to understand is that in all three of these relationships, it was never his intention to hurt the other person. And what's also important to understand is that Blitz has been growing as a person throughout the series. And in the case of Verosika and Fizzaroli, he's become a big enough person to apologize and admit that he made mistakes. And in my opinion, it's one of the most important things to understand about Blitz. Is Blitz really that bad of a person? No. Let's be honest, these characters live in hell. They're obviously not going to be picture-perfect people. And every single character in this series has made mistakes in one way or another. But the only character that gets serious flack for making these mistakes, even though he is actively trying to become a better person, is Blitz. And to me, it's absolutely baffling because I've seen so many people on my own videos saying that Blitz doesn't deserve stolas or he doesn't deserve forgiveness from other people. If somebody hurts or wrongs Blitz, it's okay because he's a bad person. And it seems like regardless of how much Blitz grows as a person and tries to be better, he will always be characterized by his past mistakes. And honestly, I just don't think that that's fair. Blitz has done a lot of bad things in his life. He's wronged a lot of people, and sometimes he can be a huge jerk. But in that same breath, Blitz has also done a lot of good things in his life. And listen, I know that Blitz has gone through a lot, especially during his childhood, but that doesn't justify him being a jerk. Regardless what you went through in your own life, you should always try to approach other people with kindness because you expect the same in return. And honestly, this is something that Blitz is actively trying to learn throughout the series, apologizing to people and trying to fix his past mistakes. And honestly, it's pretty incredible what Blitz has been able to achieve in a society that is constantly telling him that he'll amount to nothing. There is so much gray area and nuance to Helluvaboss and Blitz's character as a whole that it just makes me a bit upset when people try to characterize him as good or bad. This is not a black or white series. It takes place in hell. There is no character that is all good and all bad. And honestly, this is what makes Helluvaboss such an enjoyable series. These characters are demons. They grow up in hell. Obviously, they are going to make mistakes. But despite their situation, they are actively trying to make things better and to be better people. And that's why the series is so fun to watch. So listen, when the series starts out, is Blitz a bad person? Absolutely. He is funny and entertaining to watch, but you should not be treating people the way that Blitz is. So yeah, for the first 5 episodes, this dude is an absolute menace to society. But as the series progresses, so does Blitz, and he becomes a better person with each episode. Now listen, after Ghost Bleepers, would I say that Blitz is 100% a good person? No. But would I say that he is definitely improved from the beginning of the series and is becoming a better person with each episode? Yes. So listen, if you guys don't like Blitz, I think that that's pretty understandable, especially because he's done some pretty questionable actions in his past. But for a character who is trying to be a better person and who is actively doing actions in order to achieve this, if the characters in the show are giving him a chance, I think as the audience, we should as well. But of course, that's all I got for today. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out a lot, and I appreciate you guys watching my video, even if you disagree with me. So let me know your guys' thoughts down below in the comments, and I'll see you next time, Tanuki Crew. Peace, peace!